Thank you so much, Dee, for those wonderful comments and for the color commentary. And now for another perspective from the same era, I am delighted to introduce former MMWD Board Director Pam Lloyd, who served on the board during the 1976-77 drought. Pam.
Hearing Dietrich go through that long ago time in my life, it just brings knots back to my stomach, frankly. And I think hearing that story, rather than wanting a nice fresh glass of MMWD water, I would love a cocktail. I knew that Dietrich was really going to go over the drought, and I thought I'd let him do it and speak about something a little bit different. And I wanted to think, I went back through files of which I have probably more than the archives from the Water District. And I came on a letter, actually a set of letters, from Roger Kent. And it was a letter, as a statement that was read at a public hearing by his daughter, Alice Kent Stevens. Is that right? Because he was ill or couldn't come to the meeting. So I'm going to have us zero in a little bit on a given event at a given time, which I think has something to say to all of us now. The theme that was chosen for the centennial celebration is a century of service and stewardship. That's short, sweet, and true. MMWD's history is intertwined with the unfolding development of Marin, and Mount Tamalpais, of course, is the towering center of both. Over the years, there have been times when the watershed lands of Mount Tam, the protection of Marin's centerpiece mountain, have been threatened by proposals of development, proposals for commercial use and or to raise money to solve MMWD's budgetary problem. Think, don't want to raise rates. One occasion comes to mind, and I was there, so it's definitely on my mind. 33 years ago, on April 11th, not too far from this day, 1979, some of you may have been alive then, others not, MMWD held a public hearing on a proposal for timber harvesting on MMWD watershed lands. So picture this. On April 11th, 5 board of directors, of which I was one, were sitting at a meeting in the auditorium. I think it was at Drake High School, because we were expecting a large crowd. And we were facing, in the end, several hundred people, of very irate Marin citizens, people from all over the county, not just district people, and all over the Bay Area. One of the speakers that night, I mentioned, was the daughter of Roger Kent. And in this letter, Roger Kent recalled first that his father, William Kent, had spearheaded the effort for the establishment of MMWD, and that Roger's brother, Thomas Kent, had been MMWD board president for many years. Then in this letter statement, Roger Kent proceeded to lambast the proposed logging operation. He refused to let it be called timber harvesting. He cited in great detail the kind of watershed damage that it could occur. He gave letter and lots of research he'd done and his experience with logging, and he said this is just not, should not happen, cannot happen, and furthermore it will not make any money, and you'll be losing, you won't have a sustainable thing economically. And he went on to say, and this is a pretty long letter, that he was scathingly faulting the watershed damage that would be done, and he scathingly faulted any public official, present or future, so foolish as to vote to sell a significant part of their great heritage for a few nickels. There was more, much more in this letter. It was passionate, outraged, informed testimony. It was made more forceful and enjoyable, at least to me, because of his colorful language. Roger Kent's concluding words flesh out, in a sense, the theme of today, a century of service and sustainability. And it is, his words are as germane today as they were 33 years ago. This is what he had to say in the end. The board is a water district, and the balance between water needs and water sources in Marin is still delicate. The board will and should be held accountable if it tips the balance against water sources. And oh yes, I almost forgot. At the conclusion of hours of very, very passionate and angry testimony, the 3 board members who had come up with the logging proposal, and I was not one of them, caved one by one as this very intimidating crowd really came forward toward the table we were sitting at. They were very angry, but they were much politer than today's people who object to things. Timber harvesting on MMWD lands was not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen on Roger Kent's watch, on my watch as a board member, or of the people's watch. Citizen leaders had spoken, and Roger Kent, I feel, had said it best that long ago night of April 11th, 1979.
Thank you, Pam. That was great. And now to take us back to MMWD's founding in 1912, I'd like to introduce Director Jack Gibson, who has spent a great deal of time studying MMWD's history. He'll share a few of the highlights. Jack.
Thank you, Tom. When they first asked me, as Tom says, I've been looking at the history of the Water District, particularly the creation of the Water District 100 years ago, for some time here. So when this event was being planned and they said, well, would you come up and talk about the history? Oh, sure, I'd love to do that. And they said, okay, we'll give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes? I mean, what can I say about the history of the Water District in 5 minutes? They said, okay, we'll give you 10 minutes. So I have 10 minutes to give you the history. The first thought that crossed my mind as I said that was a remark I heard 40 years ago from Woody Allen, who said that he was very excited. He had just finished a speed reading course and said he had managed to read Tolstoy's War and Peace in 25 minutes. It was really great. It was all about Russia. So with my remaining 5 minutes, I'll give you the 10-minute version of the history of the Water District. As we've said, today we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the Secretary of the State of California issuing the charter for the Marin Municipal Water District as the first municipal water district in the state of California. It came after a dozen years of unbelievable community activity with large segments of the community working feverishly to get to that point. But they had an election that passed it, and on April 25th, 1912, the charter was granted. 2 months later, they had the first election of the Board of Directors, which at the time was called the Board of Trustees, and 5 trustees were elected. 2 of them, all of them active people, active in the creation of the district, but 2 of them especially, I mean, still well known to us 100 years later today, and one of whom we have mentioned several times today, and that, of course, was William Kent. The other was his partner in the effort, and I say loosely partner. I mean, they worked hand in hand as a very good team, and that, of course, was Michael O'Shaughnessy, both charter members of the first Marin Municipal Water District. It is amazing to me when I think about it, the vision that these men had, and that's a loosely used word. I mean, we talk about somebody's vision frequently, as a matter of fact, but if you think about it, put yourself in 1912 and what Marin County was like, and for that matter, what California was like, what the Bay Area was like 100 years ago, and then envision what it is today. How could they have possibly known the risks that were ahead of them? They couldn't possibly have felt those risks at that day. They were surrounded by open space and wild lands and so forth, but they did see the risk. That's vision. And it's, to me, quite astonishing when I look at it that way. I think Kent captured it very well in a quote I'm about to read to you. And this was in a speech that he gave 4 years later, because the intervening 4 years from November 1st, 1916, date of Kent's speech, when water started to flow through the MMWD system. They had put together the organization, they had set up the staff, they had managed to purchase the assets of all the other private water companies in the district, bring them together, put them into one system. 4 years later, water started to flow, and that was celebrated on November 1st, 1916. In that speech, Kent said, "The segregation of this mountain district means everything to the future of the county. And whenever any large development is contemplated, this immense tract immediately appears as a supreme public benefit. The segregation of this property from private hands and placing it in public control makes it a trust of such extreme value that the citizens of southern Marin County would not tolerate misuse and jealously watch the actions of the district trustees, however neglectfully they may be of their other officials." It's quite true. Having been on the board for 15 years now, I can tell you, we are closely watched, and we should be, because the responsibility we have is enormous, and I think Kent stated it absolutely perfectly. A few years later, in another speech, I will give you a quote here from Michael O'Shaughnessy, who's also worth remembering today. This was a speech he gave to the Tamalpais Conservation Club on September 25th, 1932. That was 4 years after William Kent had passed away. And it's a longer speech. He's talking about Alpine Dam, and I'll spare that all from you for my 10-minute version here. And that is, this comes from the middle of his speech. Our dear friend, Mr. William Kent, may well be termed the father of the district, because he donated $25,000 cash, which he owned in stock of the Marin Water and Power Company. He also helped convey the lands and other ways shown his interest in making the undertaking. The people of Marin County should always treasure his memory. I think that is exactly what we're doing today. Both of these men obviously gave us the Marin County we live in, and that we love, and that we can appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Before we go too much further, I just wanted to stop and acknowledge Libby Pichelle, our Public Information Officer, who's put all this together. Okay, so we're looking forward to learning more about the district's history when your book comes out this summer. So that's good. And I'm pleased to say that there are others who want to acknowledge MMWD's centennial anniversary and the district's service to the community. Cynthia, if you want to come up here. I'd like to introduce Neal Roberts, field representative from the Office of U.S. Representative Lynn Woolsey.
My name is Niall Roberts, and I'm a representative from Congresswoman Woolsey's office. I'd just like to formally present the Water District with a resolution that the Congresswoman made on the floor of the House of Representatives recently, recognizing the Water District on its centennial. I won't read the entire thing because, like the history of the district, it's quite lengthy. But I would like to just briefly say that as a Southern Marin native who grew up in a time of drought in Mill Valley, it's my pleasure to be here to celebrate your history and to recognize an institution that's had such a great impact as a symbol for what Marin is and as an example for the rest of the Bay Area and what Marin can do. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and please convey our gratitude to Representative Woolsey.